Hi, this is Lincoln Stoller. I wanted to talk today about intelligence and sanity, two things that seem like opposite ends of the spectrum, but really aren't. You'll know that a lot of very intelligent people tend to be insane or have trouble maintaining their sanity. And I think this is really important for us in general because as a physicist and a psychotherapist, I'm familiar with both trying to create more insightful and intelligent descriptions and dealing with other people who are my clients, trying to make sense of their world in what you might call an intelligent way. Some of whom are very skilled and others are rather disabled in one way or another. So the question of what are your abilities and your disabilities, your opportunities and your vulnerabilities really get mixed together. And you can't really distinguish intelligence from sanity in certain perspectives. Well, intelligence is basically something you have in the context of what people expect. And so is sanity, actually. But I wanted to break down intelligence into a more useful set of tools and then compare it to what sanity requires. So intelligence is mostly in the Western world seen as intellectual. We train it, we test it, we value people according to their possession of it. But it's really only a small part of a person and their ability. So in addition to intellect, there is predominantly emotion, which we kind of disregard in its importance, don't particularly train, or use it mostly as a form of convincing people of our sincerity, authenticity, diligence, and honorable nature. But we don't test it, and we don't train it. And in addition to those two primary, both somewhat Western notions, there is memory, which we take it for granted, as if it was some objective thing, as if everyone had a little tape recorder that was storing away in some sort of computer analogy bits of the past. But that's not what memory is. Memory is the process of associating thoughts. And if you have different thoughts, you'll have different memories. And as you can appreciate, if you think about what happened yesterday, you don't remember much. You remember the things that are meaningful. And the things that are meaningful are the things that play a role in your thoughts and environment, past and future. And in addition to these three, there is intuition, which is some combination of all these. Where does it come from? Well, we don't even know where the thoughts come from, but the intuition is certainly probably the most mysterious. And it involved being creative and instinctual, intuitive, insightful, something else we don't really train or recognize. But the less we train and recognize these things, it turns out the more important they are. So you can have a very intelligent, intellectually, mathematically, or verbally skilled person who doesn't really have a great deal to offer. So in addition to these properties, there is, sanity. As a clinical counselor and psychotherapist, sometimes I deal with the notion of illness, emotional dysregulation, diagnosed conditions. And sometimes this is useful, but mostly it's behavioral and evanescent changes with a situation. So you can appreciate that if you're traumatized, and we all are somewhat in our childhood, these issues come up and disappear according to the situation. Some people's trauma is so evident that they live it all the time. Sometimes it becomes so normal that they just become depressed or anxious or violent. And it's a question of memory and intellect and emotion and insight. And I think the reason that this is important is because as our world becomes more connected and as our control becomes less effective, our personal control, we become more stressed out. At the same time, we're more responsible. So the American politics these days, just to give one example, is an example of a population who had economic and political control largely of the world for no particularly good reason, except that they had a lot of resources and they weren't subject to a lot of destruction in the world wars. But they're not too concerned about being responsible in making judgments that are for the best interests of everyone whom they affect. As we know, most political decisions are based on a person's immediate future prospects, economic and cultural. So that we are more likely to be triggered by events that are outside of control and less likely to appreciate all the aspects of our own resources, since we've never been taught to control them. And I think more and more people are going to need, well, something in the realm of counseling, therapy, guidance. And, this is what people go to the news for. And you know how effective that's become. And also, this is why people go to cinema, movies, drama, literature, to get a different perspective. And that also is not particularly intelligent in general. The question is how to combine and recognize that the issue is not just being intelligent, but understanding what it is to be responsible and sane. And as I say, perhaps the most important thing is being intuitive and insightful. Something we're not taught and we don't recognize, and we often don't discuss. So if you'd like to learn more about the aspects of intelligence and sanity, go to my website at mindstrengthbalance.com. And on the articles page, you'll find hundreds, over 300 actually, blog posts from the last 10 years. And you can subscribe to the blog for free for a monthly post. And these are fairly long posts. Or weekly at a subscription price. Or there's a books page, because I've written going on 10 books now, on the topics of hypnosis, neuropsychology, and education, intelligence. These are books for mass market audience. I eschew the technical and academic group because I don't think they're broad enough. And thanks for listening. You can get in contact with me at mindstrengthbalance.com.